Mount Rushmore stands as the ultimate, globally recognized symbol of American democracy and expansionist triumph. Every year, millions of visitors stand beneath these 60-foot faces to celebrate the nation's growth across the continent. But this monument sits on a legal and moral contradiction. The U.S. Supreme Court has formally ruled that the very land these faces are carved into was unlawfully stolen from the Lakota people. Today, that tension remains unresolved. The U.S. government has offered a settlement of over $100 million in restitution, but the Lakota refuse to touch the money. For them, the Black Hills are a sacred landscape that cannot be treated as a real estate transaction. To understand why Mount Rushmore is contested ground, we trace the theft back to the man who sparked the initial conflict, George Armstrong Custer. The legendary defeat at Custer's last stand and the eventual carving of Mount Rushmore tell a single, continuous story of imperial conquest over this specific piece of land. In 1874, Custer led a massive military column directly into the Black Hills, a region protected by treaty for the Lakota and Cheyenne. Reeling from a national financial panic, the United States desperately needed gold to stabilize the economy. Custer's expedition confirmed the presence of the metal, triggering an immediate and illegal rush of thousands of miners into Lakota territory. When the Lakota refused government demands to sell the hills, the military responded. They launched a three-pronged campaign intended to force the tribes out of their territory and onto reservations. This campaign culminated in June 1876 at the Little Bighorn River. There, Custer's 7th Cavalry intercepted a massive encampment gathered under the leadership of Sitting Bull. This unprovoked invasion for gold effectively transformed an independent indigenous nation into a target for American expansion. On the day of the battle, Custer committed a series of tactical blunders. He divided his forces and launched an attack against a vastly superior number of warriors without performing any reconnaissance. The Minneconjou Lakota warrior Red Horse survived the fight and later produced 42 detailed ledger drawings. His eyewitness account provides a stark contrast to the heroic imagery often found in American history books. Red Horse described a battlefield choked with a fog of war so thick many Lakota warriors were unaware Custer was even participating in the fight. Internal military dysfunction further crippled the 7th Cavalry. Custer's subordinate officers, who openly despised their commander, failed to reunite with his battalion as the native counterattack overwhelmed his position. Every man in Custer's immediate command was wiped out. The annihilation of his battalion stands as a catastrophic failure of leadership and reconnaissance. If Little Bighorn was such a humiliating defeat and an illegal land grab, we have to ask why it is remembered as a legendary American triumph. The myth was carefully engineered by Custer's widow, Libby, and a massive corporate PR campaign that used visual media to rewrite the narrative for the American public. The centerpiece of this campaign was a painting by Cassily Adams depicting a romanticized battle with Custer standing tall and defiant. The brewing giant Anheuser-Busch purchased the image, sending thousands of copies to saloons, searing a false heroic myth into the national memory. This PR effort effectively rebranded the U.S. military as noble martyrs. By portraying the cavalry as victims, the narrative erased the reality of the stolen Black Hills. This shift had a devastating impact. The engineered public outrage over Custer's martyrdom gave the U.S. government the political cover it needed to officially seize the Black Hills and force the tribes onto reservations. 50 years later, in the 1920s, South Dakota state historian Doane Robinson proposed a massive mountain carving to boost the state's struggling tourism industry. Robinson originally wanted to honor local Western figures, including Native leaders, but the sculptor Gutzon Borglum completely changed the project's direction. Borglum shifted the focus to 4 U.S. presidents. He intended for these figures to represent American empire and the doctrine of exceptionalism. The result was the ultimate act of physical erasure. Borglum blasted the faces of expansionist leaders in the exact sacred granite the U.S. government stole from the Lakota following Custer's campaign. Today, the Lakota's ongoing refusal to accept the Supreme Court's financial settlement is their modern stand to reclaim their territory. The history of the Black Hills remains a living struggle, a battle over memory, over national myth, and the land itself.